and welcome to the Kemetic How-To Guide for Egyptian Pagan and Kemetic practitioners. I'm your host, Sharon. Today's topic is inspired by a question that was posted on one of our live services. And that question was, why do you have cloth on your altar statues? While I've touched on this topic in the past, that was several years ago, and since then I have more sources and more pictures that I could share, so let's explore this topic some more. The ancient Egyptians made statues of their deities in a variety of sizes and materials, but when they were new, those statues were not as plain looking as they often are today, sitting in museum collections. Some of those statues were painted. Some of them had inlays in the eyes and other details, and some of those statues had robes. We know about this from text sources and from examples that were found in a very famous tomb. Those text sources, in one case, come from the daily ritual of Amun, where cloth in green and blue and white and other colors is made as an offering as part of the ritual that also involves offering crowns and jewelry and applying makeup. So in that case, that cloth may not have been, just a strip or something. It may have actually been clothes. In the Book of the Dead, which I mentioned the last time, there are chapters that address a deity with the words, "Upon you is a fringed garment." Funny thing, we have actual examples of these fringed garments from the tomb of Tutankhamun. For example, these statues, as photographed during the process of excavation, and these replicas, which we saw this spring in the King Tut's Tomb Discovery Experience exhibit down in Houston Museum of Natural Science. Now, according to Howard Carter's notes, all of the statues that he found had linen shawls on them, but many of them had decayed over time. For example, the big guardian statues that faced each other at the door to the burial chamber originally had tattered linen shawls around them. And while a lot of the more well-known and well-published photographs don't show these shawls on certain pieces, according to his notes, they all had them. And very possibly that would have included the guardian goddess statues facing the four sides of his canopic chest. There may also be references to cloth that would have been on a deity's statue in the Greek magical papyri, specifically in spells PGM 7, lines 229, and PGM 8, line 30. Both of these are requests for a dream oracle from the god Bes. They specifically mention black cloth of Isis, which, especially if you look in the notes, it's thought that that has to do with the worship of Isis that was done during that time period, and may have referred to her cult statue. And keep in mind that when books like this talk about a cult statue, they're not talking about an ooh kind of cult, they're just talking about the religious practice. But the underlying idea in having a spell that uses cloth from the worship of a deity and possibly from her statue would have been that she would have imbued that cloth with her power through, the ritual or just having it on the statue of a deity. Of course, good luck getting the cloth off of a temple statue, but a lot of spells called for rather difficult to find ingredients like that. Finally, we have some cross-cultural references from the Egyptians' neighbors in Mesopotamia. Temple inventories from the city of Uruk itemize articles of clothing for statues of deities like Ishtar and Nanaya and Marduk, down to the number of gold sequins and appliques. Because, hey, gold is expensive. We don't want anybody pocketing some of that stuff. So they had an itemized record of all of these things. And that tells us something about the kinds of clothing that would have been put on the statues of deities, which would have included garments of wool and linen, sashes and robes and shawls that were dyed in red and blue and decked out with sequins and beads and gold and other, and semi-precious stones. So this would have been quite dazzling to look at. I mean, adios Barbie, Ishtar has you beat. So it's safe to conclude that the Egyptian gods' statues would have been similarly decked out, just with Egyptian clothing, which would have probably used more linen, but also gold and semi-precious stones. And speaking of Barbie, today we tend to think of dressing a figure as something childish. But to the ancient peoples, this was a pious offering. And also to modern peoples, Catholics in places like Mexico, and in the United States, in New Mexico, in places like Santa Fe, make articles of clothing for statues of the Madonna and Child that are paraded through town during annual festivals. And the people who do this will very rightly tell you there's nothing childish, but everything sincere about what they do. So if anything, you could say that the statues I have are dressed rather plain, for now. But I've also given them jewelry that in some cases has personal significance. Like my statue of Tutankhamun has what was originally a bracelet of beads that I made as a teenager at summer camp. So, if you get inspired, don't be afraid to try making something like that for your own statues. It's a sincere form of offering that has a very long history behind it. So hopefully this gives you some ideas and some frame of reference for your own personal practice. In the meantime, of course, if you want to see videos like this one ahead of everybody else, join us on Patreon. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a super thanks. We have some definite super thanks to give to Riot Bestset and some other folks that have been giving us stickers throughout the last month. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And, of course, we've got ongoing rewards on Patreon, and there's some exclusive videos that I'm working on right now, and lots of good things like that. And, of course, I want to wish everyone a happy Egyptian New Year, Upet the Ronpet, and I'm looking forward to seeing y'all, because you know where I'm from. Looking forward to seeing you all again next month. In the meantime, this is Sharon, wishing you Senepti.
Enjoyed this video? Then be sure to hit like and subscribe to the Kemetic Independent channel. You can also buy my books on Lulu.com, and special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Join us for updates, outtakes, and exclusive videos only on Patreon. Check the description for links.